and every day.
I don't think you look crazy.
Stupid hair's fuzzy like cotton.
Well, you said you were going to get it cut. Oh, hi. A little slice of our life there. Welcome to Stories from Your Gaffer, episode 70. I'm Clint McElroy, and this is my wife, Carol McElroy.
Here's to me and here's to you.
Carol, okay. There's another half to that toast. I'm just glad she didn't do it. All right.
Really, here's to you and here's to me. Best as friends will always be.
Now stop. So, it's family entertainment.
That was a family toast.
We are reading The Graveyard Book by Neil Gaiman, and this is where we are. He's just found out that Mr. Frost, spoilers, Mr. Frost is the man named Jack Frost. And then all the other Jacks, the Jacks of all trades, came to the house, and now they are in pursuit of Bod and Scarlet, who are hiding in the graveyard.
And Scarlet and Bod are running through the graveyard, but the Bean Man jumped the fence. Scarlet said, "Just tell me what we're doing." Bod was walking fast through the twilight graveyard, but he was not yet running.
How do you mean?
I think that man wanted to kill me. Did you see how he was playing with that black cord?
I'm sure he does. That man, Jack, your Mr. Frost, he was going to kill me. He's got a knife.
He's not my Mr. Frost. Well, I suppose he is, sort of. Sorry. Where are we going? First, we put you somewhere safe. Then I deal with them.
Oh, I'm sorry. All around Bod, the inhabitants of the graveyard were waking and gathering, worried and alarmed.
"Bud," said Cassius Pompeius, "what's happening?"
Bad people, said Bod. Did I give you the wrong page?
15. I need 116.
Oh,
I got it. Never mind.
Okay. Bad people, said Bod. Can our lot keep an eye on them? Let me know where they are at all times. We have to hide Scarlet. Any ideas?
The Chapel Crypt, said Thackeray Porger.
First place they'll look.
Who are you talking to? Asked Scarlet, staring at Bod as if he'd gone mad. Cassius Pompeius said, "Inside the hill?"
Bod thought, yes, good call. Scarlet, do you remember the place where we found the Indigo Man?
Kind of. Dark place. I remember there wasn't anything to be scared of.
I'm taking you up there.
They hurried up the path. Scarlet could tell Bod was talking to people as he went, but could only hear his side of the conversation. It was like hearing someone talk on the phone, which reminded her, "My mom's going to go spare," she said. "I'm dead."
No, said Bod, you're not. Not yet. Not for a long time. Then to someone else. Two of them. Now, together, okay? They reached the Frobisher mausoleum. The entrance is behind the bottom coffin on the left, Bod said. If you hear anyone coming, and it's not me, go straight down to the very bottom. Do you have anything to make light?
Yeah, a little LED thing on my key ring.
Good. He pulled open the door to the mausoleum. And be careful. Don't trip or anything.
"Where are you going?" asked Scarlet.
This is my home, said Bod. I'm going to protect it. Scarlet squeezed the LED keyring and went down on her hands and knees. The space behind the coffin was tight, but she went through the hole into the hill and pulled the coffin back as best she could. In the dim LED light, she could see stone steps. She stood upright and, hand on the wall, walked down 3 steps and stopped and sat, hoping that Bod knew what he was doing, and she waited. Bod said, "Where are they now?"
His father said, "One fellow's up by the Egyptian wall looking for you. His friend's waiting down by the alley wall. 3 others are on their way over, climbing up the alley wall on the big bends."
I wish Silas was here. He'd make short work of them, or Miss Lepescu.
"You don't need them," said Mr. Owens encouragingly.
Where's Mom?
"Down by the alley wall."
Tell her I've hidden Scarlet in the back of the Frobisher place and her to keep an eye on her if anything happens to me. Bod ran through the darkened graveyard. The only way into the northwest part of the graveyard was through the Egyptian walk. And to get there, he would have to go past the little man with the black silk rope, a man who was looking for him and who wanted him dead. He was nobody Owens, he told himself. He was part of the graveyard. He would be fine. He nearly missed the man, the little man, the Jack called Ketch, as he hurried into the Egyptian walk. The man was almost part of the shadows.
Bod breathed in, faded as deeply as he could fade, and moved past the man like dust blown on the evening breeze. He walked down the green-hung length of the Egyptian wall, and then, With an effort of will, he became as obvious as he could and kicked at a pebble. He saw the shadow by the arch detach itself and come after him, almost as silent as the dead.
Bod pushed through the trailing ivy that blocked the walk and into the northwest corner of the graveyard. He would have to time this just right, he knew. Too fast, and the man would lose him. Yet if he moved too slowly, a black silk rope would wrap itself around his neck, taking his breath with it and all his tomorrows. He pushed noisily through the tangle of ivy, disturbing one of the graveyard's many foxes, which sprinted off into the undergrowth. It was a jungle here of fallen headstones and headless statues, of trees and holly bushes, of slippery piles of half-rotted fallen leaves. But it was a jungle that Bod had explored since he'd been old enough to walk and to wander.
Now he was hurrying carefully, stepping from root tangle of ivy to stone to earth, confident that this was his graveyard. He could feel the graveyard itself trying to hide him, to protect him, to make him vanish, and he fought it. He worked to be seen. He saw Nehemiah Trot and hesitated. "Hola, young Bod," said the poet. "I hear the excitement is the master of the hour, that you fling yourself through these dominions like a comet across firmament. What's the word, young good Bod?"
"Stand there," said Bod, "just where you are. Look back the way I came. Tell me when he comes close." Bod skirted the ivy-covered Carstairs grave, and then he stood panting, as if out of breath, with his back to his pursuer, and he waited. It was only for a few seconds, but it felt like a small forever.
"He's here, lad," said Nehemiah Trot, "about 20 paces behind you." The jack called Ketch saw the boy in front of him. He pulled his black silk cord tight between his hands. It had been stretched around many necks over the years and had been the end of every one of the people it had embraced. It was very soft, very strong, and invisible to X-rays.
Ketch's mustache moved, but nothing else. He had his prey in his sight and did not want to startle it. He began to advance, silent as a shadow. The boy straightened up. Jack Ketch darted forward, his polished black shoes almost soundless on the leaf mold.
"Here he comes, lad," said Nehemiah Trot. The boy turned around and Jack Ketch made a leap towards him, and Mr. Ketch felt the world tumbling away beneath him. He grabbed at the world with one gloved hand, but tumbled down and down into the old grave, all of 20 feet, before crash landing on Mr. Carstairs' coffin, splintering the coffin lid and his ankle at the same time.
"That's one," said Bod calmly, although he felt anything but calm.
"Elegantly accomplished," said Nehemiah Trot. "I shall compose an ode. Would you like to stay and listen?"
"No time," said Bod. "Where are the other men?"
Euphrema Horsefall said, "3 of them are on the southwest path leading up the hill." Tom Sands said, "And there's another right now. He's walking around the chapel. He's the one who's been around the graveyard for the last month, but there's something different about him."
Bod said, "Keep an eye on the man in with Mr. Carstairs, and please apologize to Mr. Carstairs for me." He ducked under a pine branch and loped around the hill and paths when it suited him, off the paths, jumping from monument to stone when that was quicker.
He passed the old apple tree. "There's 4 of them still," said a tart female voice. "4 of them, and all killers. And the rest of them won't all of them fall into open graves just to oblige you."
"Hello, Liza. I thought you were angry at me."
"I might be. I mightn't," she said, nothing more than a voice. "But I'm not going to let them cut you up now, anyhow. No-how."
Then trip them for me. Trip them and confuse them and slow them down. Can you do that?
"Well, you runs away again? Nobody, Owens. Why don't you just fade and hide in your mam's nice tomb where they'll never find you? And soon enough, Silas will be back to take care of them."
"Maybe he will, and maybe he won't," said Bod. "I'll meet you by the lightning tree."
"I am still not talking to you," said Liza Hempstock's voice, proud as a peacock and pert as a sparrow.
"Actually, you are. I mean, we're talking right now."
"Only during this emergency. After that, not a word." Bod made for the lightning tree, an oak tree that had been burned by lightning 20 years ago, and now was nothing more than a blackened limb clutching at the sky. He had an idea. It was not fully formed. It depended on whether he could remember Miss Lepescue's lessons. He remembered everything he had seen and heard as a child.
It was harder to find the grave than he had expected, even looking for it, but he found it. An ugly grave, tipped at an odd angle, its stone topped by a headless, water-stained angel that had the appearance of a gargantuan fungus. It was only when he touched it and felt the chill that he knew it for certain. He sat down on the grave, forced himself to become entirely visible.
You've not faded, said Liza's voice. Anyone can find you.
Good, said Bod. I want them to find me.
More know Jack Fool than Jack Fool knows, said Liza. The moon was rising. It was huge now and low in the sky. Bod wondered if it would be overdoing it if he began to whistle.
I can see him! A man ran towards him, tripping and stumbling, two other men close behind.
Bod was aware of the dead clustered around them, watching the scene, but he forced himself to ignore them. He made himself more comfortable in the ugly grave. He felt like a bait in a trap, and it was not a good feeling. The bull-like man was the first to reach the grave, followed closely by the man with the white hair who had done all the talking, and the tall, blonde man. Bod stayed where he was. The man with the white hair said, the elusive Dorian boy, I presume. Astonishing. There's our Jack Frost hunting the whole world over, and here you are, just where he left you 13 years ago.
Bod said, that man killed my family.
Indeed he did.
Why?
Does it matter? You're never going to tell anyone.
Well, then it's no skin off your nose to tell me, is it?
The white-haired man barked a laugh. Ha! Funny boy. What I want to know is how have you lived in a graveyard for 13 years without anyone catching wise?
I'll answer your question if you answer mine. The bull-necked man said, you don't talk to Mr. Dandy like that, little snot. I split you, I will.
The white-haired man took another step closer to the grave. Hush, Jack Tar. All right, an answer for an answer. We, my friends and I, are members of a fraternal organization known as the Jacks of all trade, or the Knaves, or by any other name. We go back an extremely long way. We remember things most people have forgotten, the old knowledge.
Bod said, magic. You know a little magic.
The man nodded agreeably, if you want to call it that, but it is very specific sort of magic. There's a magic to take you from death. Something leaves the world, something else comes into it.
You killed my family for what? For magic powers? That's ridiculous.
No, we killed you for protection. A long time ago, one of our people, this was back in Egypt in pyramid days, he foresaw that one day there would be a child born who would walk the borderland between the living and the dead. What if this child grew to adulthood? It would mean the end of our order and all we stand for. We had people casting natives before nativities. Casting nativities before London was a village. We had your family and our sights before New Amsterdam became New York. And we sent what we thought was the best and the sharpest and most dangerous of all jacks to deal with you, to do it properly, so we could take all the bad juju and make it work for us instead, to keep everything tickety-boo for another 5,000 years, only he didn't. Bod looked at the three men.
So where is he? Why isn't he here?
The blonde man said, we can take care of you. He's got a good nose on him, our Jack Frost. He's been on the trail of your little girlfriend. Can't leave any witnesses. Not something like this.
Bod leaned forward, dug his hands into the wild weed grass that grew on the unkempt grave. Come and get me, was all that he said.
The blonde man grinned. The bull-necked man lunged. And yes, even Mr. Dandy took several steps forward. Bod pushed his fingers as deeply as he could into the grass, and he pulled his lips back from his teeth. And he said 3 words in a language that was already ancient before the Indigo Man was born. Sky, Fig, Kavaga!
And he opened the ghoul gate.
That's what they deserve. The grave swung up like a trapdoor. The deepest black hole below the door, Bod could see the stars, a darkness filled with glimmering lights. The bullman, Mr. Tar, the edge of the hole, could not stop and stumbled, surprised, into the darkness.
Mr. Nimble jumped toward Bod, his arms extended, leaping over the hole. Bod watched as the man stopped in the air at the zenith of his spring and hung there for a moment before he was sucked through the ghoul gate, down and down. Mr. Dandy stood at the edge of the ghoul gate on a lip of stone and looked down into the darkness beneath. Then he raised his eyes to Bod and thin-lipped. He smiled.
I don't know what you just did, said Mr. Dandy, but it didn't work. He pulled his gloved hand out of his pocket, holding a gun, pointing it directly at Bod. I should have just done this 13 years ago, said Mr. Dandy. You can't trust other people. It's important. You have to do it yourself.
A desert wind came up from the open ghoul gate, hot and dry with grit in it, and Bod said, there's a desert down there. If you look for water, you should find some. There's things to eat if you look hard, but don't antagonize the night gaunts. Avoid Ghoulheim. The ghouls might wipe your memories and make you into one of them, or they might wait until you've rotted down and then eat you. Either way, you can do better.
The gun barrel did not waver. Mr. Dandy said, why are you telling me this?
Bod pointed across the graveyard. Because of them, he said. And as he said it, as Mr. Dandy glanced away, only for a moment, Bod faded. Mr. Dandy's eyes flickered away and back, but Bod was no longer by the broken statue. From deep in the hole, something called, like the lonely wail of a night bird.
Mr. Dandy looked around, his forehead a slash, his body a massive indecision and rage. Where are you? He growled. The deuce take you! Where are you?
He thought he heard a voice say, Ghoul gates are made to be opened and then closed again. You can't leave them open. They want to close.
The lip of the hole shuddered and shook. Mr. Dandy had been in an earthquake once, years before in Bangladesh. It felt like that. The earth juddered and Mr. Dandy fell, would have fallen into the darkness, but he caught hold of the fallen headstone, threw his arms around it, and locked on. He did not know what was beneath him, only that he had no wish to find out. The earth shook. He felt the headstone begin to shift beneath his weight. He looked up. The boy was there, looking down at him curiously.
I'm going to let the gate close now, he said. I think if you keep holding on to that thing, it might close on you and crush you, or it might just absorb you and make you into part of the gate. Don't know. But I'm giving you a chance, more than you ever gave my family.
A ragged juddered. Mr. Dandy looked up into the boy's gray eyes and he swore. Then he said, you can't ever escape us. We're the jacks of all trades. We're everywhere. It's not over.
It is for you, said Bod. The end of your people and all you stand for. Like your man in Egypt predicted. You didn't kill me. You were everywhere. Now it's all over. And then Bod smiled. That's what Silas is doing, isn't it? That's where he is.
Mr. Dandy's face confirmed everything that Bod had suspected. And what Mr. Dandy might have said to that, Bod would never known, because the man let go of the headstone and tumbled slowly and down into the open ghoul gate.
Bod said, Well, Carados. The ghoul gate was a grave once again. Nothing more.
Something was tugging at his sleeve. Fortinibus Bartleby looked up at him and said, Bod, the man by the chapel, he's going up the hill.
And that's where we stop for the night. In the graveyard book. Oh, okay. I have a picture to share with you. This is a Christmas picture from 1965. No, 1964. 1964. Tall, skinny, good-looking dude in the glasses. That's my dad.
And that beautiful woman is Donna.
That's my mom. And there's me looking goofy and my little brother Mark looking a little less goofy in our matching pajamas, no doubt. And you can see the tree in the back. Look at all that tinsel. Look at all that tinsel on
icicles. They're called icicles.
Icicles, yeah. Icicles. All righty. Hey, listen, thanks for being with us on this Sunday evening. We will be back here tomorrow evening at 5:30 for episode 71. We've only got a couple left. Only a couple left. We'll be wrapping up the Graveyard Book. Until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and choose joy. Mwah.